Buddy, we are live betting for breakfast on the Sharp app. Everybody listening, make sure that you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. It is a beautiful day today to bet college football. The season is 2 weeks away. We're going to get things started today with our SEC and our Big Ten preview. For those new to the show, you can read me at Yahoo Sports. You can hear me at Fox Sports Philadelphia, The Gambler, and you can see me right here on the Sharp app every Saturday morning, bringing you all the college football betting content you need with my guy with me right now, Dave Gleckner. Dave, I can smell it almost in the air, the tailgating, the dew on the ground, the sound of college football right around the corner, and I can't wait to get into this season.
Is Lee Corso still alive? I can't wait to see my boy again.
He's going to be back, man.
I lost Bobby Brown, and I can't lose Lee. So yeah, dude, I'm pumped for the season. I just need to see that face, need to hear that music, need to see that game day crew rolling in, because we're only a couple weeks away from that happening. But just ripping through a lot of this stuff, starting to see the battles, transforming at each team's, team practices. Which, listen, we talked about. We were on the air last year. There weren't a lot of preseason practices with COVID. A lot of teams just got a couple and went and played. This year, you can really start to analyze what they're doing and kind of start to shape what you think they're going to be this year. So I'm really excited for this show and the shows going forward as we get a chance to predict a little bit. That's always a fun part.
Yeah, and it's the most difficult part, I think, is like, what do we take from the 2020 season with some of these teams? It was so tough. Some teams played 3 or 4 games. Some teams played much more. But like you said, the COVID and the scheduling and, some of the teams, like I recently did a piece on Colorado, the Buffaloes for Yahoo Sports, and just some of the challenges they had with practices and things of that nature. And then the most important thing is a key word you're going to hear is everybody breaks down the college football season is returning production because of the COVID rules that have passed. Everybody, gets that returning production back. So a lot of teams have a lot of their key guys coming back for another season. So it's going to be really exciting. And there is no more competitive division conference than the SEC. We're going to dive right into that first. And of course, Dave, the real dynasty in college football. I mean, we can call it a dynasty at this point. Nick Saban and the Alabama Crimson Tide. When you think college football, you think of them so dominant. They win the national championship. It seems like every other year they're always in the hunt. And of course, they're going to be back in the hunt again. And I think the most fascinating part about what Nick Saban does is just, his ability to backfill. The recruiting is just excellent. They lost last season. In Mac Jones, in Najee Harris, in Devonta Smith, right? We're talking about probably statistically the best quarterback, running back, and wide receiver in the country. They lost to the NFL, and now they're just going to backfill, and they're going to be right up there contending for the playoffs. So Alabama, a very interesting team. Saban just, retools the team, brings in the new faces. He's got guys, ready to step up and shine. And I think they're going to be right in the mix again this year.
Their last 3 starters at quarterback are probably going to start for NFL teams this year. You got Jalen Hurts, Tua, and now you got Mac Jones. Eventually, Mac will start if he doesn't take over early. And now what do you got? Bryce Young. And he might be the best of all those 4. I mean, there's a potential this kid could be better than all those 3 that preceded him. He was the number 1 player from the 2020 class. He's already raking in millions from the NIL. I'll say millions, but, upwards of $1 million. Like this guy – he's got it, and now he's got the reins at Alabama. And the big thing is, can you do what your guys before you did as well? And because of what you just said with Nick Saban and the kind of stuff that he believes in, the way he coaches, I think he can. He doesn't let these guys get big heads. He doesn't let them walk out of there, and think they are the stars they were in high school. And now he retools with Bill O'Brien. He lost your boy Sark to Texas, right? But here comes Bill O'Brien, and it's like, here's my rebirth. He let Lane Kiffin rebuild himself. Sark rebuild himself. He's going to let Bill O'Brien, but don't believe it. This isn't Bill O'Brien's offense. This is Nick Saban's offense. Bill O'Brien's just maybe throw a few tweaks, call the plays. And then you talked about stars at the other positions. Watch out for wide receivers again. They lost Waddle and Devontae Smith. But gosh, Mechie and incoming freshman G. Hall. They could be the next Smith and Waddle this year, that soon.
Yeah.
They're special. You're right. That offense, I thought I saw the best offense I ever saw in my life when I saw Burrow and LSU, and how good that last year's Alabama beat that.
Yeah,
This one will
100%.
be close too. Yeah.
Yeah, you talk about the wide receivers, and we're going to talk about Ohio State a little bit later, right? Best wide receiver tandem in the country. They get a transfer in from Ohio State as well, Jameson Williamson, who's going to be, right in the mix for the starting position. He's going to be a big big part of that offense. So, that just shows you the level of talent. Like, that, not only that Ohio State has the wide receiver position, they got some, question marks in some other areas, but Alabama is just ready to take a guy right off the scrap heap from, a playoff, caliber team in Ohio State and, just move him right into the fold. But like you said, huge opportunity, for John Michie, and they're going to be right there. Favorites to win the conference at minus 165. Georgia is probably the only team that, I think that has a chance to kind of contend and knock them off. And they're on the odds boards at plus 200. And, I really think when we're talking about the SEC, it's a 2-team race with these teams. But when I look at Bama, I mean, I feel like it's warranted at minus 165. I mean, you look at this team, like we said, they lost all that production, but they're able to kind of backfill it. They get Bryce Young in. I think early in this season, we could see Bryce Young kind of struggle a little bit, right? New offensive coordinator, new quarterback. We might see a little bit of a run-heavy approach with Saban. That's something to keep in mind. We're betting them. They're going to be some big spreads with them, so we're probably going to look at some first-half lines with Alabama just because of the game script might be a little more conservative until Bryce Young gets some experience, right? But listen, the defense is going to be lights out. They have the best linebacking core in the country. The back seven is super strong. So I expect Alabama to pick up right where they left off. I think if the schedule was a little different and they had some really tough games early in the season, I think that there could be a chance that they would slip up. But we're looking at the over-under at 11.5.
That means undefeated, right?
That means undefeated on the win total, right? So it is. It's crazy. And the over is minus 125. The under is plus 105. And I'm not sure where they lose, Dave. I'm really not sure where this team loses.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously they're in the tougher division every year. I mean, you got the Auburns, the LSUs. You got real Texas A&M now. It's a stronger, deeper division, in my opinion. And I still don't think they'll lose. And I think I'm going to be honest. I think Georgia gives them everything they got. But this is regular season wins, right? 11.5. If I had to lean one way, I do lean over. My only fear here is what you talked about earlier, Bryce Young being so young and the expectations that'll be, on his shoulders. Ole Miss almost got him last year.
They did, and they're a wild card. And it's funny that you brought that up, Dave, because I was looking over the schedule last night, right? And I was looking early because, like I said, hey, if you can catch Bryce Young early, while he's getting comfortable in the offense, maybe you can sneak a team, sneak a win in there, right? But week 3 at Florida, I don't like Florida at all this year. I think they bring in Emory Jones, who's supposed to be Dan Mullen style quarterback, but they lost a ton of production. We talk about Kyle Pitts, we talk about Kyle Trask, and then of course Kadarius Toney goes to the Giants, so they lost some big players at the NFL, and their defense is trash. So I don't think even at Florida, I think Alabama wins that game with ease in style. Week 3, I don't think that's going to be much of a problem. Obviously, we'll see how the teams look in the first 2 weeks, but I don't think that's really a spot where they can lose. But outside of that, they get LSU at home later in the season. Young's going to have his feet under him by then. But, as we get into October, they have Ole Miss at home, and then they're at A&M, which I think is a dangerous back-to-back.
It is. I felt like they played at A&M and Ole Miss at home last year. I don't know how that ended up, the same way this year. But I get it. We're coming off of COVID. We're just shuffling the deck. I can't touch the over. I can't say they're going to go undefeated. I actually think, I'm wearing one of the jerseys today, not just because. I think Auburn's a tough game for them, too. It always is. It's that rivalry game. They're already going to have won the West by then. They'll be up for it, don't get me wrong, but Auburn will be all in, right? And, you can say what you want about them. Bo Nix is still there, so it's turnover city happening. But new coach, new system, Derek Mason, DC. I think Auburn could give them a little, there's always one surprise. And that's the one that I'm looking at. I'm like, you never know. You never know.
Yeah. Historically, it's been a surprise. Dave, I'm just so out on Bo Nix.
I know.
I just can't imagine. I can't imagine Saban would lose to him with that linebacking core and that back seven. Who knows? Maybe he gets hurt. Maybe they got someone they can pop in there and, steal a win. But Bo Nix to me is just, oof. Like Auburn's not a team. I know they got Malzahn out of there. They got a new guy in there. But I think it's going to be a tough year for them. Yeah, it really is. I mean, I just think Nix is not the guy. You can, you can change the chef, but if the ingredients stink, that's the way it's going to be. And that's why I feel with Bo Nix. You can bring in whatever coach you want. He's not going to get it done. But where are they going to trip up? And that's kind of the thing. But I think that Ole Miss, Texas A&M back-to-back is interesting. A&M is a team that a lot of people like this year.
So let's get into the West here. Like, looking at all the teams, just summing it up, is there any one that you, like, point at and say, hey, I like this from an over-under perspective? I can give you mine, and it's actually the team that you just said. I actually think A&M's an under. And there's a couple plays here. They still got a QB battle to solve. I think it's going to be Haynes King. He was their number 2 last year, big recruit out. But my big question mark for them is offensive line. Look, they led up, I think, 5 sacks all last year. It was something, unreal. They lost 3 of their starters. And now you got, I know they'll retool. I know they'll have some big hogs down there, but you're bringing in a brand new quarterback in a pro-style, confusing system. I've seen Jimbo trying to, put this in with a lot of different quarterbacks and new offensive line. I just think 9.5 is a lot, man. It's a lot for them. I think LSU's improved. I already said I think Auburn's better. I like Ole Miss. I think Lane, he just has to fix that defense. They got to let up 10 points less, and they're in a lot more games. And I don't know. Arkansas, we'll see. I think they were a little bit of fluky last year, but every game Texas A&M plays is going to be a challenge. And 9.5 for me is a big ask for them. I think they're 9-3.
Yeah, I think it is a big ask, but a lot of people are on A&M. I think they're going to be a really fascinating team when we look at it. But I'm with you. I do lean towards the under with them. I just think that it's a big ask. I think that they kind of turned some heads last year, and now all of a sudden they think they're going to be right up at the top. Obviously, recruiting, they do very well in that area, but it's going to be a tough year, I think, for them. And you mentioned Ole Miss. Before we get them, our man Arroyo checking in. Listen, we appreciate you checking in. He's up early, man. It's early for him on the West Coast, so God bless you, man. We appreciate you hanging there with us. He's talking about watching Ohio State on Sunday and then doubling down on the Steelers. Ohio State on Saturday and doubling down with the Steelers on Sunday. A little back-to-back action, and that just gives you a glimpse of how crazy football season is. Like, we get college on Saturday, we get the pros on Sunday, and it's just nonstop, man, once the weekend hits. So I cannot wait.
It's a real season.
Last year, it's a real season, right?
SEC was like, I'm playing a full season. Nobody else did. Big Ten was playing 5-6 games. I used other ACC. SEC is like, I'm playing right away. And so we got them, but it always felt like a light card. Not this year. That card's going to be long and stacked, and it's going to be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be stacked. And, they came out with a hard stance. Hey, if, you got to get your guys vaccinated or you're going to forfeit games. We saw it in the NFL. We're seeing some conferences kind of file suit. The team that I like that I'm going to talk about before we get into the SEC East in Georgia is Ole Miss, 100% fully vaccinated, right? Lane Kiffin has the program up and running. He's entrenched now. Last year was a little bit of a, kind of get up to speed, make a splash, and that he did with that offense, lost some production. Elijah Moore goes to the NFL draft, but I really like Lane Kiffin this year in Ole Miss. Now, the defense is trash, right? But it's going to be a little bit better. It has to be better. Last year, they had very little returning production. I want to say 4 or 5 starters were coming back. They had some COVID issues on the defense. I think the secondary is going to be better this year, right? But let's be honest, this team is not about the defense. This is about Lane Kiffin putting up a ton of points, hitting overs. That's what we want to see this year. I'm going over on the win total at 7.5. They won 5 games last year. They have 17 returning starters. They're top 20 rated recruiting class. They had a top 10 passing attack. Matt Corral, I think, is live for the Heisman at 35-1. I think you can still get him at that number. I think that's a good number because the Heisman's about stats, and Lane Kiffin's going to produce stats with this offense. If Spencer Rattler, Sam Howell flips, I think Matt Corral could sneak up in there at that number. I think it might be worth a shot. But even with Elijah Moore leaving, Dave, I think that this wide receiving core has a ton of talent. You have Sanders, you have Drummond, you have Jonathan Mingo. They have all those guys coming back. They have good returning production, 4 or 5 guys back on the offensive line. Corral's going to get protection, has a ton of weapons. They're going to run up the scoreboard. The defense is going to have to be a lot better. We know that. But let's look at the schedule. They open with Louisville. I love them in that matchup. They should be 3-0 before they hit Bama. Obviously, Bama's going to be a tough game. They're probably going to lose, could get steamrolled. We'll see what it looks like after 2 weeks. But, they travel to Tennessee, Dave. That's Lane Kiffin City. He can't wait for that game. He's got that circled a big red Sharpie, right? So I'm not worried about them in that game. I think they smash them. I think they'll piece up Auburn, right? I don't think Auburn has enough firepower to keep up with this offense. Bo Nix just going to fire off a bunch of turnovers. I think the Liberty game is going to be really fun with Malik Willis. That's going to be an over. Set the line at 100. We're going over. It doesn't matter, right? That's going to be a ton of fun. And listen, they have some possible losses. LSU, we talked about A&M, and at the end of the year they get Leach and Mississippi State, which I think could be a tricky team this year. But I think they can get to the 8 wins. I like them. I haven't bet the over 7.5 yet, but I am just going to wait a little bit. I'm not in danger of losing a number. It's -110 at both shops, so it's not being shaded either way. But I think that I'm going to wait just to make sure nothing crazy happens with Carroll or with COVID or anything of that. Unders, I fire on. Overs, I'm going to wait a little bit closer till we get to the season. But I like the Ole Miss Rebels. I like Lane Kiffin. We've been on the Lane train for a long time, and I think it's going to be full speed ahead for them this year. All gas, no brakes.
I love him, right? And there's going to be many opportunities where I pounce on the Lane train. It's going to happen. He's sharp when it comes to knowing what the point spread is. I never toss the word around genius, right? But he's a very smart guy, right?
He knows offense.
And he knows offense, but he also knows how to motivate, right? And he knows what he's got to use. Look, this year he's already lost, like 30 pounds? And he was like, listen, I'm telling everybody to get in shape, stop eating donuts. And here I am looking like, I forget what he called himself, like Fat Albert. But he's like, I saw myself in the bowl game. And he's like, I had 8 chins. Like he was ripping himself the other day. So he's sitting there dedicating himself to the health. And now you got to practice what you preach, right? And, you can't just tell people do things and you're not doing it. That's not what leaders do. So I really like that he's maturing as a leader too. So like I said, he's got an intellect. He's got the coaching. He's just got to let that brashness not get in the way sometimes. And I think now that he's maturing, man, sky's the limit. I don't know where I fall with Ole Miss. I'm leaning with you with the over. I think they can get as high as 3rd in the division. Scare them for second. The key game for A&M for me going under is probably this one. A&M goes to Ole Miss, right? I got it as a win for Ole Miss. That's a key game, so that flips Ole Miss to the over too. So I don't know, how high can you get them? I mean, top 25, 3rd in division? Yeah, second.
It's, like I said, I mean, I think that they're recruiting. They get better and better each year. So I think he's going to put the pieces together. I think the defense was just a mess last year. I think they get a lot better. So
I'll be honest. I don't trust Matt Carroll as much as you do. That dude threw so many picks, and he's working on one leg half the time. But you got another season off, and you didn't have much practice. We talked about that's a key, right?
Yep.
So there's that optimistic look to it. Guys got to cut down the turnovers. Got to come down.
Yeah. That's the negative. When when you're all gas, no brakes, right? You're going to put the defense in bad positions. You're going to give them short field sometimes. It's that aggressive mentality. But you're right. He does have to tighten that up because the schedule's not a piece of cake. Like, we talked about it. You got LSU on there. I think LSU is going to be better, even with Brennan hurt. You got A&M, Mississippi State. I think Leach it's going to be tricky, man. I think it's good. He's going to be tricky. It's going to be tricky. He's getting his people in there. But I do like them at Tennessee, and I just think there's enough spots. They're a team that can kind of upset anybody just because of the way they can score. So I think they can get to the over 7.5. I absolutely love it.
All right, let's go to the West. I mean, East. Let's go to the East.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said earlier, it's all Georgia. It is, and I think this team has the chance to be special. They were held back last year at quarterback, no doubt about it. I mean, they were going toe-to-toe with Alabama in Alabama, and then they turned over the game to this walk-on. I put his name out of my mind. What it was? JT Barrett's their starter. It'll come to me, and they just started throwing the ball around the field when they were pounding Alabama down their throat and leading at halftime, and then they flipped the script in the second half. My biggest fear about Georgia is Kirby Smart. I don't know but he's got to get it right. I actually think their talent is like right there with Bama. Their running game is stacked. Their offensive line is stacked. Defense is amazing. They got future first-round picks up and down each level. Got to get right at quarterback, but you got a little bit. JT Daniels, I think will start for them, right?
Yep. Oh yeah, it's JT Daniels. It's 100%.
USC transfer. He had the knee injury last year. They couldn't really, deploy him right away, but now he's got the full season, another health. He did play a little at the end of last season. George Pickens worries me a little bit, him being out, but I mean, they'll find ways. Their defense is that good, minus the Florida game last year, but they're good, man. They're really, really good.
Yeah, they really are. I like them too. Arroyo checking in. Big point spreads in college are intimidating to bet, and he's not lying, and that's why a lot of people look at these first half angles. Like, you can bet the team first half. The starters are going to be out there. They're not going to pull the starters in the first half, right? So that's kind of something to look at if you're in the looking at these big point spreads and you're not really comfortable taking the full game. You can get those first half lines, but the other part about it is the way college is structured. It incentivizes these teams to win big, right? So they run up the score. That's what happens. It's not like the NFL where they just start running the ball and, hey, we'll see you next week. They keep firing away because they're trying to move up in the rankings. They're trying to get into the best bowl game that they can if they can't get into the playoffs, because that gives them more money, and that is what college football is all about now more than ever. But I'm with you 100% on Georgia, Dave. I share your sentiments exactly. I think that they are right up there, and they could probably play with any team from a talent perspective. I think Daniels, when they went with Bennett last year, Stetson Bennett, and I think there was a real mismatch as far as his skill set and Todd Monken's system, right? And can he really deliver what Todd Monken needed? And I think that Kirby Smart failed in the sense that he kind of stayed with him too long. But I think Daniels comes in, he can bring that deep, aggressive element that fits Monken's system. Phil Steele ranked Georgia third best defense in the country, right? I did a piece on West Virginia for Yahoo, talked about their defense. They lost safety Tyke Smith, Philadelphia guy, right? They lost him to Georgia from the transfer portal. This is a guy who's a top 5 safety in the nation, top 24 overall player in PFF's top 100. So, they have some guys, and they brought in some more guys to kind of, help solidify that defense, because they let up some big plays last year. They brought in another kid, Kendricks from Clemson. So I think that they're just loaded on the defensive end. And, Dave, we look at this team and we can talk a little bit about the best way to bet Georgia, right? Because we agree that we like Georgia, but what's the best way to bet them? Because I look at the schedule, very soft after Clemson. Like Clemson is really, the big challenge there. Can they get away with a win there? How is that going to impact their season? They're slight underdogs in that game. I'm not worried about Florida, not worried about at Auburn. The win total is 10.5. It's juiced up to 130 for a reason, right? Everybody expects them to win at least 11 games. Even if they lose that Clemson game, they're going to be favorite in the other ones. But here's the way I see it, Dave, and tell me if you agree with, just kind of like the best way to approach Georgia. They're plus 200 to win the conference, right? They're plus 170 to make the playoffs, right? They're plus 145 week 1 against Clemson. Right. So if you're going to invest in them, and you think they can beat Clemson. Like, what are their chances of winning the conference, making the playoffs, if they lose that game to Clemson?
Oh, I still think they're high. And I think if you're not going to bet them, because that's an out-of-conference game, right? So it's not really going to affect their overall winning the conference, except from the standpoint, like you said, confidence, right? And you know, if they beat Clemson, huge confidence boost, right? And then now all that stuff comes down a little bit. So from a betting value perspective, how much you like Georgia really does kind of flip on that game from a betting perspective, right? For me, I probably sit on them beating Clemson. I think they can do it. I think they're that good. But I like the value in winning the conference. I really do at the plus 200. It's crazy that the playoff odds are plus 170. They're less than winning the conference. So they're saying, yo, you'll get to the SEC championship, you'll lose, and you'll still make the playoffs. With 2 losses? Right. I mean, I guess, right? I mean, Ohio State's a given. They're getting there somehow, some way. I think Oklahoma probably as well. So you pulled 2 SEC teams again and an ACC? I guess, right? It's very possible.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I think when I look at it, like if they don't beat Clemson, right? Like they can still get there, but it's going to be a lot more difficult. Where if they beat Clemson, they're set. They're almost set. So I almost look at it like you like this team, bet them to win, bet the money line against Clemson, the plus 145, and you know are they going to be able to make the playoffs if they're not as good as Clemson? You know, because part of, I think the puzzle of them getting into the playoffs is going to be, you know, Oklahoma is going to get in. You talked about it, Ohio State. You know, is Clemson going to be able to get in, right? So, you know, that game I think is really pivotal when you look at it. And I think with this team, you know, instead of betting them to win the conference, which, you know, plus 200 is a better number. Like, I get it, but I really think that, hey, just bet them week 1, money line, plus 145, cash that, and then you can kind of see where you're at from there.
Yeah, I like it. I like the strategy. I'll be honest. I love the over 10.5. I'm not as scared of this one as I am. You know, I just can't bet Alabama to go undefeated. It just will they probably, but I feel a lot better Georgia going 11-1. And like you said, this Clemson team it's close to a coin flip at plus 145. Spread is going to come probably somewhere in the 5-6 range. They can do it, especially with that defense. So I like those.
Yeah, I'll have my eye on it. I mean, I like them a little bit because you figure like, hey, like if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to be better than Clemson, and because Clemson doesn't have a tough schedule either.
No.
Right. So like, you know, we'll talk about, you know, Clemson next week, but so their path to the playoffs really hinges a lot on, you know, this game early on in the season. So I think it's definitely interesting on how you can play it, but you know, win the conference plus 200 to make the playoffs plus 170, plus 145 week 1 against Clemson. But there's definitely a lot to be excited about Georgia. And I share your settlements in. It's a really big year for Kirby Smart. Like Kirby Smart has to show. They talk about, you know, hey, this is a program that should be up there mentioned with Bama, and he should be mentioned with Saban and all this stuff. And he's kind of like the Saban light, you know, in the SEC. And, you know, should he demand more respect? But I thought that he kind of held them back last year just with his decisions as far as
that's it.
You know, the quarterback and the defense, I didn't think was up to par. Now, they brought in some players, so I like that. And I think the defense will be much better. Like I said, Phil Steele ranks them 3rd in the country, but they got to show it on the field.
It's funny you say that because the defense last year, I think in 9 games let up, you know, averaged 300 yards a game, right? Like they were amazing. But the 2 games that they had to win, Alabama and Florida, they let up 41 and 44 respectively and close to 500 yards. So it's they're a very good defense, but show me when you play these offenses. And we're going to know day one, right? We're going to know Clemson. You're going to get the big guy from Clemson, Ugalele. You're going to know if they're the real deal or not. And you're right. The transfer is big from West Virginia. And, you know, I think the defensive backfield's strong. They did lose some talent, but they always retool, just like Alabama. Man, I'm excited. I think Georgia is their top 4 or 5 team easy in the country. Now, Kirby Smart, go do it.
Yep, absolutely. So now let's move over to the Big Ten, right?
Well, one quick one. I will give you one other team from the West that my eyes are on, and it's my over-under play, probably in this area. I love the Missouri Tigers. I'm in big. It's like your Ole Miss out in the West, in the East here. I love Missouri. I mean, they were 5-5 last year. They had some games, but the QB Connor Bazelak, I think he could be something. And, I'm not going to sit here and say he's NFL product yet. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Brock Purdy out in Iowa State. Solid, can do a few things at different levels, good arm strength, can move the ball. Tyrese Batty at the running back position, he's ready to take over. Tyler Batty, I'm sorry. And for Roundtree, and they were solid on defense last year. They didn't come up with the turnovers that we wanted, but I'm looking at their schedule. And, I'm telling you right now, name me a game. That Southeast Missouri State, Boston College, North Texas. Their biggest one is Texas A&M, but they got that at home. Florida got that at home. Win one of those two and you're 8. And I just got to get them. That's all I got to get them. And the over under 7. I feel safe with 7. There's no hook.
Mm-hmm.
I feel
that
really
gives you push potential. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think Kentucky's the biggest game of the year. And it just so happens Kentucky's their SEC opener. So you're going to know, in my opinion, if you win that bet by middle September. If they beat Kentucky, which I think they will, they're on their way. There's no stopping them from getting over 7.
Yeah, I think Kentucky's going to have a little bit of a rough go this year, but definitely Missouri. I like it, man. Sometimes, you find these unassuming teams, in the conference with these win totals a little bit off, and you can kind of fire away on them. And I think it's a play. So let's chalk that one in. Missouri over 7, right? It's flat 7 you can get. Okay,
yep,
perfect.
Flat 7. I think they got a chance to be the second best team in that conference. Florida will be there, but they're going to be close in that division.
Nice, very competitive. Going to be a lot of fun, man. Going to be a lot of fun. But let's get over to the Big Ten. You can see the odds at the bottom of the screen for the Big Ten title odds. Ohio State obviously leading the way at -220. Wisconsin +600. Penn State +900. Iowa +900. Indiana +2,000. So Indiana's a team I think we're going to talk about as well. But first, I do think it's Ohio State's conference to lose, right? We look at the Buckeyes and they're, perennial, playoff team. They have some questions at quarterback, which I think are fair, right? You look at CJ Stroud. There's not a lot of experience in that quarterback room, very little snaps taken, but, Ryan Day, I think, does a tremendous job recruiting. They're going to be up and coming. And, how do you help a quarterback that doesn't have a lot of experience, right? You give him a good offensive line and you give him great weapons to throw to. And that's exactly what Ohio State has in probably the best wide receiver tandem in the country with Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And I just think that, they're going to pick up right where they left off last year. I think that they're, the cream of the crop in the Big Ten. Lots of tough teams in the Big Ten that I like. I think Penn State's going to be a little bit better. I think Iowa's going to be better. I like Wisconsin. We're going to talk about them in a little bit. But I don't think any of them are at the point. College football is where the rich get richer, right? It's not the NFL draft where the bad teams get the good players. The good teams get all the good players, right? They just recruit the players and they just add to the separation between them and everybody else, especially now with the NIL coming into play and all the different factors with the playoff money, et cetera, et cetera. And I think it's going to be the Buckeyes again in the Big Ten at -220.
Yeah, I didn't do a ton handicapping Ohio State. Simple fact, Ryan Day, I think, is 17-0 in his career in the Big Ten. In Big Ten games. And they're the team to beat. They're the cream of the crop for all the reasons you just said, and the simple fact that they are just mentally stronger. And you look at one of their key games coming into the season, it's Oregon in week 2, right? And, think Pac-12 football against Big Ten. And the physicality and the mentality, it's in the horseshoe. I think they win that one. And when you look up and down the schedule, there's not a lot of challenges except for that Penn State game. I think that's a key. Clifford's back. Penn State they're an interesting team. Started 0-4 and then went 5-0 the rest of the season. But even in that 0-4, you could have said they might have even been 3-1. They had some unfortunate losses there. So, yeah, that one maybe. We'll see. That's always a good game. They challenged Ohio State last year for a little bit while. But after that, they don't get Wisconsin. They don't get Iowa, like you said. And Michigan, Harbaugh has never beat them. So
right. That's probably not going to change this year.
Yeah, this is a team you can't fade. They're in the college football playoffs. It's the bottom line. rich get richer, like you said. We'll see if someone can step up. I do think the Big Ten is getting stronger. I do like last year, Northwestern makes the title game, right? I think we're going to see a little bit better quality of football.
Nothing we might not see them back.
No, nothing against them. And they actually, they played a damn good game against Ohio State. Don't get me wrong. They knocked Fields all around. Worst game of his career. But come on. I do think the Big Ten's getting stronger. And I think that you get into what happened last year and just playing only a few games, not knowing if you were ever going to play at all, parents having to go, petitions to get them to, start the season. Don't listen to the commissioner. There's a lot of flux going on. Wisconsin's one that I'm telling you right now, they got screwed the most, right? They looked awesome in the first game. Threw like 7 TDs against Illinois, and then COVID, 3 straight games, and then they're just off their tracks. So weird conference last year. They'll be better.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about Wisconsin because I'm on Wisconsin as far as the win total. Haven't bet it yet, but definitely will be betting it. Like I said, the overs I'm going to wait a little bit on just to make sure nothing crazy happens. The win total is at 9.5. I do like the over -105 at DraftKings. So again, we're not in a position where we're going to lose this number, right? It's -105. We got some time. We can relax before we bet the over. But really like Wisconsin this year, and we saw +600 to win the Big Ten, second shortest odds, right? They had a hot start last year. You talked about that, Dave. They put up 92 in their first 2 weeks, right? And then everything fell apart. COVID, all that stuff. It was a mess. We had injuries to the wide receivers. Graham Mertz gets a full year now in the offense, a regular offseason. He gets all that stuff. And I read something really interesting about past quarterbacks, taking a big jump in year 2 under Paul Chryst. So I expect this to be a really big year for Mertz in Wisconsin. When you look at it from a scheduling perspective, right? So there are some tough games, Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, right? Big Ten football, always tough, going to be close games. These games are all at home for Wisconsin. They get all 3 of those games at home. They play Notre Dame on a neutral. I think Notre Dame takes a step back. I think that's a game that they can win. This is a defense that always shows up, right? 7 of its 8 top tacklers are back. Phil Steele has them as his number 2 surprise team. They're -115 to win the Big Ten West. I think that's a play as well. I just think that there's a lot of things moving in Wisconsin's favor. And I think that they're going to be a lot more of the team that people expected to see last year that didn't see because, again, the receivers got banged up. Mertz hurt his shoulder, COVID hurt his shoulder. It was just the season was just a mess for them. I think they come back strong. They come back focused. And I definitely think that they can get to double-digit wins. So I like Wisconsin in the over.
I love it as well. I love them to win that side of their division and the West. And -115 is a great number on that. I'm not as high as you on Iowa, as high as you are on Iowa. I think they're a team like they could go 7-5, they could go 9-3. Like there's still a lot of question marks out there, but they're tough. Like they'll play good. Don't get me wrong.
They'll play tough. Yeah. I mean, they have questions of quarterback and, they're not going to be one of the strongest teams, but
we already talked Northwestern's taking a step back. I fully believe that if they get to 6-6, I might get surprised. It's definitely their division. They're the cream of the crop. And I really, they're one of the stronger plays. I agree. They're good. They're really
It's funny you brought up Northwestern in that Ohio State game because, you think back of it and it's all water under the bridge now, right? Justin Fields is in Chicago. He looks like he's going to get an opportunity to play. He's doing great things in practice, but Northwestern lost Justin Fields a lot of money. It was like Justin Fields was the number 2. And then when we got to draft day, everyone kept talking about Northwestern. And I'm like, are you guys serious? Like, this kid can ball. Like, I don't know what you're looking at. But, they took that one game and they zeroed in on it. And it was, that's kind of how the NFL draft works. But whenever I think of Northwestern, I just think of Justin Fields. And I'm like, man, if that wasn't for that Northwestern game, he'd probably be with the Jets. Might be in a better situation with the Bears. Who knows? We'll have to see. But he's going to get an opportunity to play, and I think he'll do great. But very interesting. So what plays, anything that pops out at you in the Big Ten? I know there are a couple teams we were talking about.
I got 2 I'm really eyed on, and I like these plays, and I like them a lot. But my first one, my biggest one is Indiana under. I just can't, look, they were a huge surprise last year. We loved them, but Michael Penix never got in the end zone against Penn State. Like let's call it out now. But and then he ends up tearing his ACL, right? And they had this great, I think it was 49-42 game against Ohio State, kind of put them on the map as well because Penn State, they're battling Ohio State. It's a year out. He's probably going to be healthy and coming back, but they're not very good running the ball. In fact, they're anemic. They're under 4 yards a carry. I don't think it gets any better. They do have some, talented receivers in Ty Freifogel, that great tight end, in Peyton Hendershot. Got it. But I just think to ask this team to go over 7.5 after getting a lot of breaks to go your way last year, where it got you to 6-2, 6-1 in the conference. I can't buy in. Big for me. Look, Indiana hasn't won 9 games since 1967. So you're telling me this over-under tells you they're going to get right there. It's a tough schedule. They're at Iowa. We already talked. They're going to be tough up and down, but at home, never easy. They got Cincy coming in. We know how good Cincy is. At Penn State, at Ohio State, at Michigan. No, Ohio State's at home. But a lot of the key games that they have to coin flip and win to get over 7.5 are on the road. I'm big on the under here. I'm sorry, Hoosier fans. I like what Tom Lewis is doing, or Tom Allen, I'm sorry. Just not this year. I think you were the Cinderella this year.
I'm with you. And it doesn't speak to, I did a piece for Yahoo on them, and I did recommend the under with them. I was not sold on the over. And I think that a lot of it it's a combination of some of the factors you brought up with, just the schedule. And you look at the team last year, they were top 4 in yards per point, right? Which kind of tells you like, hey, how far did they have to go to score points, which is good and efficient offense. But it also speaks to, this is a defense that got a ton of turnovers, and they were playing on
turnovers. Yeah, they led the defense.
Yeah, a ton of turnovers. So, are they going to continue to create turnovers at that level? We know that, turnovers doesn't really have a predictive value from year to year all the time. So that could be a little bit of a challenge. I like Penix Jr., but second ACL. Like, what is he going to come back like? And they could easily come out of those first 3 games 1-2. And then, once you are 1-2 at that point, with Penix Jr., like, how do you kind of like, it's not that you have to save the season, but they still have 3 Big Ten tough games after that. It could be a little bit of a grind, but I like Cincy a lot. So I just think the way the schedule plays out, and like I said, some of the turnover luck that they got last year, I'm with you on that under. That's definitely a play.
Yeah, I'll throw my other, and then one just quick tidbit if you got anything else. I actually like Michigan over. And I probably am going to be on Island this year. They were pathetic last year. They had to fire their longtime defensive coordinator. We highlighted him, Don Brown, who went out to the West Coast in the Pac-12. But they were 120th in havoc. And we know that's not Michigan. You grow that talent. You're supposed to be in the backfield making plays. They had Quiddy Pay. You had people, and they just could not stop anything. And the quarterback position was rough. And they brought in one of our kind of favorites from last year, Texas Tech transfer, Alan Bowman. He can rip it, right? Over 5,000 yards in his career. Problem is, he's had a punctured lung, bad knees. Like, dude is like a first read and go. Like, and no doubt, because he's afraid to get hurt. I don't blame him. But it's going to bring that dynamic that Harbaugh hasn't quite had. And for me, if you look at this team, up and down, I'm buying on the low. And I think when you're sitting at 7.5 minus 115, they play 5 road games, 7 home games. Their road games are tough at Wisconsin and at Penn State. We can chalk those up, and they're going to lose to Ohio State. There's 3, right? So now you just got to win the other 9, but really in reality, you can afford 1 loss there to still beat this. And I think with new defensive coordinator Mike McDonald coming over from the Ravens, Jim Harbaugh's brother staff, I think they're going to be a little more nasty. I just like Hassan Haskins at running back. He averaged 6 yards per carry last year. They'll be better on offense. I think we're buying low here. And I like them.
I like it too, man. And, they have a freshman running back too. I think his name's Donovan Edwards, that is supposed to be really, really big play guy. Like, really, he can, reel off dynamic playmaker. He's going to be a good complement, I think, to Haskins. You look on the defensive side, I think the problem with Don Brown is just that his system wasn't matching the talent that they had. The back end, the secondary was an issue. And of course, he's, blitzing people all over, being super aggressive, leaving that secondary on an island. Didn't work out well. They let up a ton of big plays. They let up a ton of points last year, just very un-Michigan like. And I think they do settle things down. I mean, even if, I know they gave that Bowman's out there, they got Cade McNamara, but if they can get, those guys, like I said, they can get good production out of the running game, kind of set those guys up for success. So I definitely think Michigan's a play on. I like them. I would definitely lean towards the over. I'm with you. They get at Nebraska. They get some games that they can definitely win. And like I said, that first game against Washington, I think is going to be a game that they can win. I think Washington's very excited. Washington's very hyped up this year. People are really excited about them. Phil Steele, ranked them. I think it is number one surprise team, but I think they're a very conservative team, very predictable in offense. And I'm not sure they're going to be able to take advantage of Michigan the way some of the teams did last year, take advantage of that secondary if there are plays to be had there. I think it's going to be a real tough game, close game, type of coin flip, result. So I think Michigan could probably steal that game as well.
Yeah, the khakis are back, babe. I think they're doing it. We're going to see them a lot this year. Hey, I'll give you my last. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, before you give it the last one, Aiden Hutchinson is, one of their best pass rushers, and McDonald's going to have him standing up, moving around, doing a lot of different things with him. So I think the defense is going to be much, much improved. But go ahead, fire. Go ahead.
I heard McDonald say he might play 3-4-4-3 and play hybrids so he can take advantage of his skills. You're right.
Yep.
But my last one, Maryland. Just keep an eye on them. And if you haven't heard, and you probably have, but if you haven't, there's another Tagovailoa in college football, and it's Tua's brother. He started some games last year, had a big problem with turnovers. But Maryland's they're interesting to me. They came out smoking, and 2-3. They beat Penn State. But I just like what they're starting to do with Mike Locksley at head coach. I'm going to wait. And I won't get into a lot of details here, but I'm going to wait. It's 5.5 now. I don't love 5.5. I love 5. I'm going to just try and see where the market goes. But it's a team to keep an eye on over the next couple of weeks here. See if we can get a little betting value later as we get close to the first game. Their schedule's not too tough. First 4 games are winnable. West Virginia is the big one. That's their opener. It's at home. West Virginia currently favored by 3. They can beat West Virginia. They're getting over that 5. I'm telling you.
Yeah, the West Virginia game is going to be exciting, I think, because Maryland does have big play potential, right?
Yes.
They do get explosive plays. And, West Virginia is a team that top 4 in the nation on defense last year. Secondary was solid as a rock, but they lost a lot of people. Talked about that with Georgia. Tyke Smith goes over, to Georgia. They lost some players, so they're having to kind of backfill that secondary. Communication in week 1 in the secondary could be a big thing, could be a little bit off. Maryland could maybe get some big plays early. And if they get a lead on them, I'm not sure Jared Doge and that Mountaineers offense is built to play from comeback mode, to play from behind. So that could be a real sneaky game. It could be a game that Maryland could steal. Going to be a lot of fun. Can't wait. We are 2 weeks away from week 0, Nebraska, Illinois, UCLA, and Hawaii. Can't wait for those games. I think UTEP's in there as well. So there's going to be a lot of fun games to get us started. But we want to thank everybody for tuning in. We're going to be back next Saturday. We're going to preview the ACC, and we're going to do some of the Group of 5 conferences that, sneaky teams that, could see win totals, things of that nature. Are going to be a lot of fun next week. We're going to preview it all before we get into the season. The final week, 2 weeks from now, week 0, we're going to be talking about all the games week to week. So make sure you stay with us. Tell a friend. Everybody out there, follow the Sharp app on Twitter, @the Sharp app. Make sure you like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That is the best way to support us. And also join the Discord, free Discord. The tweet is pinned to my Twitter page. You can go in there, click the link, join the Discord, have fun with us all season. We're going to make a ton of money. College football is a lot of fun. Let's start our weekends right, waking up every Saturday morning with some winners, betting for breakfast. We will be back next week. Thank you for joining us.